let's record. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, Hypertext Markup Language. Now, a markup would generally be meant something that we put, you actually find markup in Word. So markup is something that we put as kind of like controls into the text to make the text to look different. So a Microsoft Word file where the markup, you don't actually see the markup. You'd have to open it as a flat file. It's got lots and lots of stuff happening in there that makes different fonts and stuff like that. That's what we're doing with HTML, is we're taking ordinary text and putting images in with it, putting fonts in with it, but in a way which is able to be, it can sit on platforms all over the world on all different kinds of devices. You can look at this HTML on a Linux device, on a Windows device, on a Apple device, on a mainframe computer. It's that kind of compatibility. So HTML is sort of a world standard of looking at things for documents transmitted across the internet. Now, you could add on to that this concept of UML, but that is still based on HTML. So HTML, what we wanted is we wanted something which is totally compatible to everybody's device. And when I said that, I left out the smartphones, right? HTML works on smartphones too. So fantastic way of just sharing our content. I use the word content here rather than data, because there's lots of other things in it besides just numbers and words. There's going to be images and videos and all kinds of things that we do on the web. Now, how HTML works is we use these things called tags. Tags tend to come in pairs, pairs being two, a starting tag and an end tag. The end tag has got a slash at the start of the tag. If you see the start tag and the end tag, what differentiates the end tag from the start tag is that little slash. But you're going to have something like that, and that is used by HTML to say that this is an element. Every element in HTML can be styled to give different fonts, to give different sizes, to give different background colors, to give different colors, and that's the idea of it, and that's why we're marking it up. We're marking it up, but we have to have some kind of label on which to do our marking, and so we use our tags for that. We also have special tags which separate the different parts of a web page. And so that's sort of represented here. This is not a web page. This is a wireframe, and a wireframe could be done on a piece of paper with a pencil, or it could be done in Microsoft Word or Draw, or Visio would be better, but just some kind of drawing tool so you're planning out what a page looks like. And so what we do with a wireframe is we say, this is what we think we'd like our web page to look like. We'd like to have a header at the top and footer at the bottom, the main stuff in the middle, and navigation down up there near the header. And then we'd like to have some images. Now, you might like your web page to look differently. This is not the ideal wireframe. This is just a wireframe, and your wireframe might be quite a lot different. And for a particular web page, you might have more than one wireframe. So you might have one wireframe. This is how I want the web page to look when it's on a desktop computer. Then I have a different wireframe. This is how I want it to look when it's on a mobile. And that would be quite different because the mobile has a much smaller window. And we're able to do that with HTML. Okay, so what you're looking at now is the bare bones skeleton of an HTML document. Now I'm going to stop for a second because I haven't had any feedback from students. I just want to know you can hear me, and as this is making sense. So you can either send me a text or you can say something, or sorry, a chat. You can hear me? Yes. Okay, good. So is it okay? I'm not going too fast or anything? It's all right. So I'm hoping that's all right. Yeah, I think that's okay. Good. So yeah, what you're looking at there is the bare bones of a web page. This could be a web page. If you save this as a .html and then opened it with your browser, you would be able to see. What you'd be able to see is in the top of the tab, like this is a tab for PowerPoint, but in the tab for your browser, kind of works the same. You would see the page title would be there in that tab. Then on the page itself, you wouldn't see H1, P, and P, but or body, none of those things you would see, but you would see these words. This is a heading, this is a paragraph, this is another paragraph. And this is a heading would be in big letters and bold, because that's how H1 works. So that's a skeleton of a web page. Very, very important that we have the two HTML tags. Do you notice that they are a pair, and that the one at the end has the slash, like I told you about? Likewise with these other tags, they're all in pairs. Not all tags are in pairs, but all the ones that we see in this page are in pairs. There are some tags that don't come in pairs, but we're not using them right now. All right, and here's some other tags that you may use. Headers and footers, I hope that idea is kind of clear. They would be somewhere in the body of the document. Then you have navs. In a nav element, you would use that to put your hyperlinks to different pages within the website. And then you would copy that nav element to other pages so that they all look the same. So this idea of consistency, that each web page has something that ties it to the other web pages. They all have the same navigation menu. They all have the same header and footer. They use the same fonts, same background colors. Those type of things we do as a sort of a professional sort of, that's our design thing. Is it's easier on the person's mind and their eyes if there's a consistency, all the pages are sort of similar, then they're not being assaulted by the colors and the fonts, and they're able to concentrate on the content of the page rather than all the different stuff that's happening. So it's the same idea of as people who wear uniforms or like I'm dressed with a business clothing. The idea is that okay, that's acceptable. We don't have to study that. We can instead study what you're saying, and you're not assaulting us with your very strange looks, and so we don't want to do that with our webpage either, unless that was the plan for the website. You might have a website that you want to assault people's senses with strange colors and sounds and stuff like that. For a particular audience, that might work, I suppose. But generally, especially in a commercial environment where you're trying to sell something, where you're trying to inform people of a very serious topic, then you're going to want to have consistency, and you're going to want to have toned down colors, and you're going to want to have very carefully thought out fonts. So there is something to it. There's a bit of a science and an art rolled in together in making websites, and I think that maybe makes it a little bit exciting, right? You can use your creativity, get all this colors and fonts and things going on, and images, and at the same time you're using a little bit of science, of psychology, of what's going to work well. There's a lot of that. I mean, if you want to talk about science, you can go and read lots and lots of articles about stuff that's going on in the web. There's some people claim that well, there's a lot of analytics. I mean, things that are happening on the internet sites, a lot of that is being tracked. And these are things that you can actually put into your website. So it's a very, very exciting sort of field. 40 years ago in computing, what we were doing was we're writing COBOL programs and stuff like that, boring stuff for banks. Nowadays, computing has moved on to this platform of the internet where everybody's there and everything's happening, and there's just so much you can do with it. But the basic is getting in here with the HTML. If you can read and understand and write HTML, you can look at people's websites and see what they're doing, and you can make one better, I suppose. All right, so we got the header tags. That's generally going to be an area at the top of the page. And the idea, again, consistency. You want the pages to look the same, just so it looks professional. The nav for navigation. These are kind of optional. You could have a web page without them, but again, it's going to look more professional if you have all your navigation in a certain way, in a certain style. What I like to think of is you don't want to, I was talking about assaulting the user's senses. You don't want to make the user work too hard, right? So if they figured out how to do the navigation on one page, then they go to the next page and the navigation's in the same place. They don't have to think about it, right? And so maybe they start to like using your website because, hey, it's easy now because, you know, I worked on this page for a while, I can work on that page, and everything sort of works together. And this is general, it's a general principle in software. And you'd notice that with the Microsoft software. I mean, you know, if you know how to use the menus in Microsoft Word, you kind of got an idea where things are going to be in the menus in Microsoft Excel. And so it's that kind of idea. The nav element is like that, a menu. So the main is going to be an area inside the middle of of a page. Usually that's where most of your content's going to be. Images, paragraphs, lots of data. If you've got that, graphs, whatever, that'll probably go inside the main. You don't have to have a main tags. You could just call it a body. We use divs a lot. There's a lot of websites, web pages that wouldn't have any mains in it and just a lot of divs. And you'll see those a lot too. Footer down the bottom, if you wanted to have at the bottom of your page, maybe you copyright, you know, page number. Well, it wouldn't be page number. Yeah, something like that is often found in a footer. Now, what you're looking at now is you are looking at a bare bones. Yeah, again, I've used that again, but this is a very small web page. And so we see all the things that we need to make a web page work. Okay, so we've got our special tag at the start. This one doesn't come in pairs. This doc type, this less than sign, exclamation mark, doc type, that's kind of like a comment. And it's basically just a comment for the browser to say, we're going to use HTML. Now, I'm speaking kind of fast. And if I'm speaking fast, I hope that's too fast for somebody that they'll tell me. But I'm speaking fast purposely because you can, this is going to be this is being recorded and you will be able to go back. And also it's a kind of a repeat of something that's already on D2L. So we have this particular web page is divided into two parts. We've got the head and the body. And the head is where we're putting stuff, which is instructions for the browser only, and the user's not going to see it. The title they will see up here in the tab. That title will show up there in the browser. The other stuff in here, that's all inside the body. This is stuff that they will see. They won't see the tags, though. The tags are always just for the browser. And so there's going to be a header. The blue arrows represent how what's the relationship between the stuff in the HTML and our wireframe. Now, generally, you would build a wireframe as a design tool before you make the web page. And then as you're making the web page, you would refer back to the wireframe and put things in the right place. So what's happened here is we've got a wireframe with the header, the nav, the main, and the footer. And then in the actual HTML, we put a header, a nav, a main, and a footer in the same sort of relative positions as they are in the wireframe. So that's what's going on there. So we've got the doc type. I explained that to you. That's required. We would say somebody's going to tell me that no, it's not required. You can write an HTML page without it. Oh yeah, maybe you get away with it. But depending on what browser you're looking at it on, right? So it could be that there's a browser. There's so many browsers, right? Opera. What's the one they use for Macintosh? I don't. Well, Opera does work with Macintosh, right? Sorry, Apple Mac. We've got there's 3 or 4 for our Windows, right? So Firefox and Google and Edge, and you know they all sort of well, HTML5 works for all of them, but some of the newer tags, because HTML is being developed as we go, right? So some of the newer tags might not work the same in all the browsers, and so that we had a lot of compatibility issues with the Windows Explorer earlier versions of it. Now I think Edge is sort of picked up and is better, but I'm not sure if it's completely compatible. You can specify a language in the HTML tag. Now remember, the doc type tag has only got one of them. It doesn't come as a pair. The HTML tag comes as a pair, and in the starting tag of that pair, we can specify a language. So for example, we can specify that the language is English. You could specify sort of so many languages, Arabic, Chinese, Japanese, whatever. Now with those ones that I just mentioned, Japanese, Chinese, Arabic, Russian, they might have a different alphabet, right? And so different characters. And so you'd have to use something else to bring those characters up, but you'd have to specify that you're using that language and then use the right set of characters. And we'll look at the set of characters when we look at the meta tags, which is coming right up. All right, so the head tags, they're found above the body or the main in this document. And the head tags are instructions for the browser. There's nothing there that the user will see except in the title. Now the style is going to be how we mark up the colors, fonts, sizes, widths, heights, all of that is done in the style. Meta tags, meta means about, so referring to, about. And so there's things that we can do about the website. So one of the things we can do is we can specify keywords. Keywords will show up when you do a search, like in Google. You can specify keywords that associate with your web page so that when people are searching on certain words, that your web page will come up in that search. Yeah, so that's kind of nice. And so here's an example of that. You could say, okay, well, my web page is all about cute puppies. And so I'm going to put some keywords in a meta tag so that when somebody searches on cute puppies, that my web page will show up. I guess that's kind of a cool idea. You can put your name as in a tag that you call an author tag. Now we got this special one, which is called viewport. The idea of viewport is what is the size of the window that this web page is going to be working for. And depending on the size of the window, we have some special commands that we can use that we can change the styling so that we can have a different looking page in a desktop window as we do in a mobile phone, which has a much smaller window. Title I mentioned, that's going to show up in the tag in the browser. I shouldn't call that a tag, the tab of the browser. Yeah, it's going to show up there. Body tags in the previous example that used main. Body's the same kind of idea. Basically, what we would do is we put body tags around everything that we want the user to see, and stuff that they don't want to see we'll put in the head. We've got this range of special tags from H1 to H6, and they're just different headings. And so they're kind of cool. All right, and this is how we do a comment. So what do we mean by a comment? If we want to leave a message for the programmers, for ourselves, or anybody that comes after us to maintain or change the website, then we're going to put a comment in there and say, this is what this bit of code does, or you should do this here, or this is what I mean. Okay, so that's a comment. This is what I mean. The way the comments work, you need to include these things. Less than sign, exclamation mark, 2 dashes. Then whatever you want, that's your comment. This stuff is your comment, right? And then at the end, you have to have 2 dashes and a greater than sign. And anything that's between those will not be processed by the browser. So you can just write whatever you want. And so that's why you put a comment there. You would have seen comments. You would have seen comments in your Python programming when you do that. I don't know if you guys are doing that. Maybe if you're doing CP1000, you're writing little programs with comments. BR is for break. That will give you a new line. So in HTML, we can't just hit enter in the middle of our document and that's going to be a new line. It doesn't work like that. I mean, HTML doesn't care about spaces that you put in it, spaces and enters and tabs. They don't mean anything. So if you want to have those, you have to actually physically put in a special character for that. And how we do that is with the BR. That means go to a new line. And so that's one way we can add new lines to our HTML. Likewise, if we want to have a line across the page, we can do that with a HR. HR is going to give you a line that goes from one side of the page to the other. or from one side of the element to the other, because in a page you could have a couple of columns and they would be different. P and P is your paragraph tags. So by the way, the HR and the BR are single tags. They don't come in pairs. The BR also doesn't come in a pair, but the Ps come in pairs. So most of the tags come in pairs, but not all. The image tag doesn't come in a pair. So how the image tag works is, you notice it's got this thing, this attribute called SRC. SRC stands for what is the source. In the source, we say, where is that file? Typically, you wouldn't have it in the same directory. Typically, you would have a directory like that of images, and your all your images, you put them into a directory. The ... means go to your parent directory, and then go to the images directory, and that's where the Mickey Mouse JPEG would be. That's a typical way of doing an image. Actually, it's not even complete there. You'd usually say Alt and say, you know, now what the Alt would do is, in case the link is broken, in case the Mickey Mouse picture is not working, then the user will see the words Mickey Mouse. That's how Alt works. Alt is just in case the picture doesn't work. These other things, I'm not going to worry about those too much. They're because all of these things you can do in another way using this thing called CSS, which you're going to learn a lot about. But if you just want to be in a hurry and just for one thing, you want to have italics or bold, then you can use these tags around a word or something like that. So if you had a word in here, so for example, if you had the word hello in between the two strong, that would come out as a bolded word. It would show on the page as a bolded word. All right, so that is the end of that. Sorry. So you could use Notepad++, or you could use brackets, or I will be using Visual Studio. Visual Studio. Somebody's asked me about another editor, VS. I think that you can use whatever editor you like. As long as you can save the file as a .html file, that is fine. You can use it. Now, I will put a link of a little video that I made for the other class, because I have two classes of this course. Visual Studio. I was just going to say that. I will be using Visual Studio. So you see I've got Visual Studio here. Visual Studio Code. So with all three of these, you can download them from the internet. They are free because they are the open source. Open source means that anybody can have them, anybody can edit them, and they can even give you the code for it, right? So the three that I recommend that you might want to look at are Notepad++, or you could use brackets, or you could use Visual Studio Code. I'm using Visual Studio Code. The reason I'm using Visual Studio Code and I'm recommending that to you is because Visual Studio Code is used by the software development instructors here at the college. And if you want to do software development, you'll be using it at some point. So maybe to save yourself having to learn lots of different editors, you could learn it now, and it'll be more efficient for you when because what I'm saying is you're going to use it. If you're doing software, you're going to use it. And so you can find it by just doing a Google, and there it is. And make sure you just get it from their website, right? Visual Studio Code. It is free. Install it and use it. It looks like this. Very nice. Okay, so you can see here the files that I am editing at the moment. I've got an index.html file, a couple of them actually. I've got some other files there. I've got quite a few actually. This is for some other courses. Yeah, it's kind of cool. You can move between them fairly easily, obviously. Well, that's not a big deal. But the colors are really helpful. So once you've saved the document as a you know, file, save as, when you save a document, you want to make sure that you save it with it, that it's an HTML here and that it's .html in the file name. So you're, when you start off, you're going to do that, .html, and save the type as HTML. Python, you might be using the brackets editor. If you want to use brackets, that is fine. Brackets will work here, not a problem. So it's really up to you. And to be honest, I will not be able to know what editor you're using because all you're going to give me is the HTML files. So if you can make the HTML files, then that's right. And somebody said that you can use VS for Python. Yes, VS could use for Python for any of these programming, Python, Java, whatever. There might be some better things for Java because Java has all these, how you say, libraries that you have to sort of put together. And there's an extension for it. The extension is .html, whereas in Python it's .py, right? So it's just when you go to save the document the first time, just make, it's when you save the type, then you choose. See, if you wanted to do Python using your VS editor, you'd find, yeah, it's probably here somewhere, right? Python, there it is. So you could save the file as a py file. PHP is very similar to HTML. Yeah, there's so many things that you can do, right? I mean, yeah, I totally recommend this. And as I say, I recommend it because it'll save you work in the end, because when you go to do your software class, this is what they're using. So yeah, I totally recommend that. And when you saved it as an HTML file, it comes up with all this help for you. See, it tells you what a style is, right? And it gives you information on each of the things that you're doing, right? How do the colors work? Look at this. So it's so easy to use. That's why people like it. All right. The color, I'm trying to get, oh, there we go. If I get to the right place, I get this nice palette come up. Now, you guys play with it, you'll get it. So yeah, it's very, very nice to work with. I'm going to run out of time in a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to do after this. I'm going to put up a video for you, which is how to get started with the exercise that we have today. I basically go through the exercise, including using Visual Studio code with it. But as I said, you could do this with any of those editors. Just make sure that you save the file as a .html and that the type is HTML. All right, so there's any other questions about that, because we are going to run out of time. I'm going to stop recording.